It is such an honor today to have Jen Kim on the podcast. Named as a top brand strategist by Forbes, Jen specializes in launching innovative ideas with high-performing teams. Her unicorn innovation model has been used by iconic brands like the Oprah Winfrey Network, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Oracle, as well as numerous New York Times bestselling authors, keynote speakers, and business and thought leaders. In her new book, Unicorn Team, the 9 leadership types you need to launch your big ideas with speed and success, Kim shares the innovation playbook on how to build the most collaborative, harmonious, and motivated team to achieve extraordinary results. Originally from Hawaii, Kim lives in the San Francisco Bay Area with her husband and kids. Jen, I'm so glad you were here. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm so looking forward to our chat today.
I am as well.
Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
I'd love to start with you sharing just a little bit of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey in development as a leader and talking about leadership ideas. How did all this get started?
Well, it's a long, winding yarn, as most stories go. I tell people I'm definitely not a spring chicken. I'm a seasoned chicken. But I did start my career actually in the corporate world. And I would say all of my work, even up till today, has been accidentally opening up a door that then I just fully walk through and open. So, I thought I was that little girl when I was 9 in school who said, when asked, who do you want to be when you grow up? All the boys were saying they wanted to be doctors and police officers and firefighters. And all the girls were saying they wanted to be teachers and nurses and even moms. And I thought that was all wonderful. But my little precocious butt raised my hand and said, I want to be the general counsel of Coca-Cola International. And that was my answer in third grade rather. And when I think back to that moment, because it's obviously a core memory for me, I think if you're listening to the show today, now you're starting to get to know how I was. I was like this very curious girl who loved to read. And my grandmother, who didn't have more than a 4th grade education, but she, had her own business in our house taking care of elderly people. Every morning she'd have her Lipton hot tea, her peanut butter toast, and she would hand me the business section of the newspaper she was reading. And she used to say to me, Anak, which means child in Filipino, which is my ethnic heritage. She'd say, Anak, I don't understand this section of the newspaper, but I think that you'd be interested in it. And this is me being a 2nd and 3rd grader. And so from a very young age, she just knew that I loved to read. And I just wanted to get into anything. So I read that. And I remember one of the stories in the business section was this guy who was the head attorney for Coca-Cola International, and it was talking about their global expansion, right? Something like that. And I was like, ooh, this person gets to travel the world and represent Coca-Cola, and I just thought, wow, that is so cool. And so growing up, I had a vision and I thought, oh, that's who I'm going to be. I'm going to be the head attorney for Coca-Cola because I thought that meant I get to travel a lot on someone else's dime. Like literally, that's why I wanted to do it. It had nothing to do with, I want to be a lawyer or I want business. And so I pursued that in college. But what happened was I was going to school in the San Francisco Bay Area, which most people know is pretty much the center of innovation in the United States. A lot of technology and even biotechnology is centered there. And so because of that, you get a job and you kind of fall into a job. And the job that I fell into was working as an intern for one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world called Ogilvy. Many of you might have heard of Ogilvy. Also, David Ogilvy is the godfather of marketing, who is the founder of that agency. And so early in my career, I started to realize how much brands and influence was shaped through not just storytelling, but frankly, through the people who rallied for those stories and behind those stories. And I became keenly aware that was something I was super interested in. Now, interestingly enough, too, Coca-Cola was one of our biggest accounts. This was back in the 90s. That's how old I am. Okay. And so I didn't become general counsel of Coca-Cola International, but I did get to work on their $1 billion marketing budget. That's how much they had put aside. And this was in the knees, friends. This was in the knees, right? To basically peddle sugar water across the world. But really, why is it such an iconic brand is because of its storytelling, because of its ability to tap into nostalgia. And anyway, I got really, really interested in that. And then I got interested in how do you bring a brand to market? Because it was like, how do you actually shape and message the brand? Then it was like, how do you actually bring the brand to market so people want it? So I wanted to get experience in that. And so I went to go work in high tech because I was really interested in all the newfangled things. And I got to work alongside people like Tony Hsieh from Zappos.com, who then got acquired by Amazon. I got to work at eBay in the early days when it was huge. I got to work with Nestle. So I got to be involved in a lot of these things. And one of my last jobs in corporate was working with Verizon to bring to market something that we all take for granted now. But if you're a Gen Xer or elder millennial and older, you remember that we used to buy cable TV and now all we do is buy streaming services, right? And so I was one of those people that the go-to kind of market specialist who brought these big new ideas to market with. And to do that, William, I had to rally different levels of organizations, right? Like from the boardroom to the workers out in the field, putting up, like laying copper and fiber optics into the ground, very different mindsets, very different values, very different things. And I had to work with the marketing teams to stay what I call intrapreneurial and innovative and be able to communicate that to all the different stakeholders. And so because I had this experience, when I decided to go off on my own in 2006 and start my own company, which was very scary, I realized that this as an entrepreneur, because now I was becoming an entrepreneur when I was an intrapreneur, you know, I realized that one thing that was missing from all my counterparts and groups that I was in is that the same rules, if you will, apply even if you're an entrepreneur. It just has to be sized differently for, the things that when you're starting out, sometimes we think we're going to like throw everything away and then start from scratch. And actually, that's where I got very interested in what actually makes people want a brand. It's actually not the product and it's not the service and it's not even the story. It's the people. So that's why I wrote this book. That's a little taster of my whole background.
What a fascinating journey. I mean, I would imagine if we were to go back and talk to that little third grade girl, she would have no idea the twists and turns that would take you to where you are now.
Definitely no. I don't think I would have been an entrepreneur. I never had these dreams to be an entrepreneur either. I'm definitely an accidental entrepreneur now. So yeah, I think if I could talk to her again, she'd be like, oh, that's how it worked, huh? That's how it unfolded.
And there's no wasted experience,
Yeah.
you know, and all of that has contributed to make you the person, the leader, the business owner, and the writer that you are today. Tell us about the unicorn innovation model. This fascinated me when I was reading about this.
Yeah. So, I love mental models and frameworks to help sort disparate data and information and decisions. And I've always operated that way. I actually tell people I was never really good at math, but what I was good at was building charts that helped me understand how things worked. And so the unicorn innovation model is one of my master frameworks that I realized really impact how you can get people to want what you have. And it's the first of 4 frameworks that I say you need. So the master framework is what I call brand time. So team, identity, messaging, and experiences. So this book, where the unicorn innovation model is the first model that I'm introducing to the world, it's my new big idea that I want people to know about, is really the visual framework, the visual model that I just described. I was able to create to make those results happen when I was both in corporate as well as my entrepreneurial career. So there are 3 tracks to the innovation model. The first track is called Navigate. And Navigate means what ideas are worth implementing. Because we have a million ideas. Trust me, I have a million running through my brain right now as I'm talking, right? And so one of the things when we think about success and impact as a leader, we want our ideas to take flight and we want them to change people's lives. And frankly, we want to make money doing it if we're in business. And so first, you have to sort out your idea. So inside of that framework, I give you 3 core exercises that you use to sort whether your idea is worth pursuing in the next season. Okay. And it doesn't mean that your ideas that don't pass muster, if you will, through that process aren't good. It just means they might not be for you to do, or they might not be for you to do next. Right. And it's really important to do that so that we know that our ideas and our vision are still being stoked and exercised, but that we can stay with our eye on the prize, right? So that's the Navigate track. The next track is the Motivate track. And that is, how do you motivate yourself first as a leader? So what kind of self-motivation comes from you to be the unicorn, if you will, that will rally other unicorns around this idea that you have vetted in the Navigate track? And that idea that you've vetted, book literally tells you how to organize it so that as you are speaking about it to other people, whether they are people who you want to already purchase current things, or it's a brand new idea that you know that you need the best possible people that you can afford at that moment to get it going, that's the Motivate track. So in that track, you determine what we call your unicorn leadership type, which is basically where you derive your motivational energy from. And, there are a lot of books on time management. And my premise in the unicorn innovation model is that actually it's an energy thing. Because you can have all the time in the world, but if in the time you do have, you have zero energy to actually do the right hard things to push through pressure, friction, and noise, which we all encounter, then it's very difficult if you can't motivate yourself, it's very difficult to motivate other people, right? And so that's what that track is. And what's very cool is when you have the book, you get access to this really juicy assessment. I'm big on diagnostics and data too, that helps you. And it's 51 pages custom to you of what your unicorn leadership type is so that you know the kind of energy that you need to embody to stay with it, stay with the idea so that you can actually bring it to life. And then the third track is the Communicate track. And that's us actually opening our mouths and saying, this is what I've got. This is what I got to do. And organizing it in such a way that you build the proper, what I call campaign elements, because at the end of the day, I'm a strategy and marketing and brand expert. And so to bring a new idea to market, most of the reason why people fail to launch or their launch is anemic or it doesn't go off the way that they want to is because they actually don't have a communication cadence and process to navigate the internal and the external messaging. And so this innovation model is so holistic. Like I could have written a book on each one of the tracks separately. I could have taken all the pieces and parts. And by the way, the publisher really wanted me to do that. And I felt so strongly that I wanted to give the whole picture in a model so that people could navigate it wherever they were. And so that's the high level overview of the unicorn innovation model.
It's fascinating. Like you, I love frameworks. I love, visuals that help me to understand something. And your book really paints that. As I think through, as you were putting this together, I imagine that you have used this with so many of your clients, people that you have worked with. Could you share a story or two from those experiences of how you've seen this look and play out?
Oh, yes. And I love that question because a lot of people come to my company and they want to rebrand themselves or they want to bring a new product to market, whether it's a services-based product or it's an actual physical product, right? And the first question that I ask always is, tell me more about your team. And they're like, oh, this is not a team thing. I just want, you to help me remessage the way that we are doing this. I want you to pull up the right stories. And I am like, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Okay. That's the communicate track. That's step 3 in my model. But first we need to figure out who's on your current team. And when I say team, by the way, for all of you listening, team can include, part-time contractors. It can include, let's say you have an executive coach like Dr. William here, he's part of your unicorn team too. Like anyone that is supporting you to get your ideas into the world is part of your unicorn team. And your unicorn team doesn't have to be forever. It has to be about the idea that you're bringing to market. So to tell you a specific story, I got the opportunity to work with Steve Harvey. Many of you probably know him. He's first a comedian and then became a talk show host. He's a New York Times bestselling author of 2 books. And he's a mogul. Like a lot of people don't know, he has a lot of business ventures going on behind the scenes, including a hair company, like a man's suit company. He's got so much going on. And when he was writing his second book, Act Like a Success, his team knew that he needed a different messaging because this book was about how to be a successful person. And although, yes, when you look at Steve Harvey, you see him as probably a successful person because he's an entertainer, he's on TV, he's this and that. But that doesn't mean that the work that he does can land on everyday people who want to be successful like him. And so when I came into the mix with his company and his team, I asked that question, tell me about your team. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, well, we actually have an amazing team. We have our radio show. He had like a couple million followers on Twitter at the time. He obviously was on mainstream TV. He also had his own talk show that he was aiming to kind of beat Oprah's record on at the time. And so he had a lot going on. And because of that, they thought, oh, for sure, just because he has this, we're going to be able to not just sell a lot of books, but we're going to be able to build an entire business around it. And that's why they brought me in, because they wanted to not just leverage the brand, they wanted to build a new product line based on the book itself. And so when I came in, I used the exact innovation model that's in this book on that whole opportunity. Okay. Because I was like, first, let's take a step back. We need to zoom up. I would say like this book allows you to be the eagle in your business, not the pigeon, right? It's kind of like first you got to zoom up and be the eagle so you can see the lay of the land. And the lay of the land includes the people who are going to help you get there. And a lot of times we choose the wrong people because either like maybe they've been around, like it's our current staff or our team. Maybe we're launching a book, for example, and we're told we have to get a publicist, to launch our book. And this book helps you pick the right people for the idea you have. And that is so critical because it's so easy to default. So my point with the Steve Harvey story is the same thing was happening, right? They were like, well, we have all these amazing assets. And I'm like, yes, they are amazing. And we definitely are going to leverage them. And part of using your unicorn team right is inventorying what you currently have, right? It's kind of like, oh, these are all the opportunities we already have here. Now, who are the right other players or processes or tools or opportunities do we actually need? And then of the current players, who don't we need in the current player set so that we can focus on getting this idea to market? Because there's nothing, and I don't know about you, but for me, when I was in corporate, and even now I have a team, obviously, in my company, there's nothing that your team groans about more than hearing about all your new, like wildly amazing ideas. And then they're like, okay, here, now you just gave me 20 other things to do that may not even happen, and right. And so it's this upfront work and the model helps you do that. And it doesn't take a long time. In fact, when you do this book first, before you do anything, you're going to move quicker because you're going to identify what and who you really need. And then you're going to be able to communicate it clearly. So with Steve Harvey, that's what happened. And because we approach it that way, not only obviously his book did very well, but we built an entire intellectual property system around him based on the Act Like a Success book. And that turned into 3 digital programs, a certification, and a 2 times a year conference called Act Like a Success. And that company made millions of dollars in the time that it was there. Like now, by the way, if any of you are looking it up, it no longer is there. And the reason is Steve Harvey decided, I don't know if I really like this whole creating content thing, right? I mean, and it's a different vibe. And that's the other thing I want you to understand is those ideas don't have to live forever. You could sell that idea. And that's what he ended up doing, is selling that company. And it created all these opportunities. And I just want you all to know, all of us, it doesn't matter if it was Steve Jobs, Steve Harvey, Dr. William Attaway, Jen Kem, or you, the listener, every single one of us started in either a garage, across a dining room table, talking about our big ideas and deciding that we wanted to bring it somewhere. And all of us have had pressure, friction, and noise and struggle along that way. I have, for sure. And so I want everybody to hear, like, sometimes entrepreneurs will say, yeah, but you know what? That's not me. I'm a small business. I don't want to get big. And I'm like, actually, the most successful small businesses, even if you want to stay the size you are, because that's what the kind of business you want to run, these principles and this framework inside this book is company size agnostic, right? It doesn't matter what size company you want or your vision is. What matters is that you have the proper strategy inside of it. And this is a strategic book. And I think that in today's world, we are not understanding, especially entrepreneurs are not understanding that strategy is the glue between vision and execution. And so many people are dreaming and so many people are being told things, but without strategy, it lands nowhere. And that's where I come in. And I'm hoping in this next season, I have what I'm calling, William, I'm wearing my author pants now, because I turned, this decade for me, 2025 to 2035 for me, the goal is to get these 4 books based on my master models written so that I can share strategy more widely, because I think it's so important. Strategists in corporations are some of the most important rainmakers in an organization. And I think entrepreneurs deserve this level of support too. And so, hope that helped.
It's so good. One of my favorite parts of the book was the last section where you talk about challenges and solutions.
Oh, yeah.
There's no such thing as forward progress and growth without challenges.
Right.
And I love how you talked about this. And you didn't just position the problems and the obstacles and say, so these are some of the ones you're going to face, but you moved to the solution side. Could you share a little bit about those?
Yeah. Well, I just want to acknowledge, I just want to +1 all the things what you just said. I think that even us talking about a book that I wrote, it's so easy for people to say, my gosh, like, how did, you're so inspiring. You got that done, blah, blah, blah. And I always say, thank you so much. And oh my God, this was one of the hardest things I ever did. In fact, I think writing a book is now, when I thought about like, what are the hardest things I've ever done in my life? 1 was being a parent, and 2, being an entrepreneur. And I'm like, actually now books are number 1. Books are number 1. Okay. It beats it beats having kids or entrepreneurship. And I don't say that to scare any of you. It might be different for you. For me, it was extremely challenging. It felt like, how am I going to justify this book to my team when we already, we already have a full plate. We've got amazing clients, but because we work with clients that also have a lot going on, right? Whenever you add a new thing, it causes, again, distraction, pressure, friction, noise. And so I like to say the only way that I can embody my highest values, which are autonomy, justice, generosity, leadership, and legacy, that the only way I can truly embody that for me and as a leader is to eat my own dog food. So in order to be that, I was like, look, guys, here's what I'm willing to do as a leader. I know that I'm going to need space for this book. I'm going to need to really think it out, because I want to write a book that is very well done. I don't want to just I want to write my best. And in order to do that, I'm going to need space. And so before I write this book, this is what we're going to do. And so that was 5 years ago. This is my point.
Wow.
I knew that writing this book, if I wanted to write a book that was a masterpiece and also get my team to rally not just behind it, but to not feel annoyed that I was throwing a grenade like we so typically do as the head of our companies. And don't get me wrong, trust me, if you ask them, they tell you I throw grenades too. Just please don't think I'm perfect. But this particular idea felt so important to me. Remember, in the first part of the model about navigate the idea, I had a million ideas. I was like, this idea feels really important to me. What is the quote unquote sacrifice I'm willing to make to be able to get this done at the level of excellence and standard that I have, that I want to put out into the world? And so when we talk about challenges and solutions, I just want to offer everybody to always ask themselves this question: does it really matter to you? Because if it does, then you will take that extra, just that little extra time to do it. And unfortunately, I didn't have this whole book written 5 years ago. I had obviously our models documented and we ran our company this way. But now this book is an entire playbook. So it won't have to take you 5 years to prepare your team like I did. It took me 5 years. Maybe it would have gone faster, but honestly, I was kissing a lot of donkeys too along the way. I say, like, you got to go find your unicorns. But in order to find your unicorns, you got to kiss a lot of donkeys along the way. Even worse, sometimes you got to kiss some jackasses, which is below the donkey level, you know? And then we're so busy being workhorses. So it's kind of like that's the spectrum. It's like jackass, donkey, workhorse, unicorn, right? And we're so busy being workhorse that this book allows you to get out of the workhorse for a moment, even pop up to your unicorn, be that eagle, and ask yourself, what do you really want? How do you really want to be seen? And that's why the next book is going to be on identity. Remember, team identity, messaging, experiences. Because if you actually believe that you want to be seen differently, like I wanted to be seen as an author, a speaker, really someone who has ideas and thoughts that I felt would help more people. And in order to be that, instead of just the CEO of an 8-figure company, I had to envision myself, and this is the process to move that needle. And so when I talk about, this is the solution. So you talk about the challenge. The challenge is I want to be an author for me. And I want to be a well-respected author. I want to talk about bigger ideas. I want to help people cut through the noise. I want to share my wisdom. I want to share the stories of my clients. And in order to do that, I had to make some sacrifices. And as I said, I kissed a lot of donkeys. I even chose, this playbook is not going to help you choose unicorns every single time, but it's going to help you choose people faster and fire people faster. When I say fire, maybe release them and not blame yourself or get stuck in something that's not going to work for you. Because that's a lot of times what we do is we don't fail fast enough. Failing is the path to success. And secondly, we hang on too long to ideas and people that aren't met for us in the next season. And so this is an elegant way to manage it.
Yeah. That's so true. So well said. I see this a lot with clients.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to hold on thinking that, oh, well, it'll get better. It'll get better. And their strategy is hope.
Right.
Hope is not a great strategy.
It's not. It's definitely not. It's a nice feeling. You know, It's a nice feeling. And I'm sure you do. I believe in hope, but I bet on strategy, you know?
100%.
So
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Let's talk about you for just a minute. I mean, we've talked about you, of course, through this, but I want to dial in a little bit on you as a leader. Your team and your clients need you to lead at a higher level today than they did 5 years ago.
For sure.
And that same thing is going to be true 3, 4, 5 years from now. How do you stay on top of your game? How do you level up with the new leadership skills that your team, your business, and your clients are going to need you to have?
I love that. And that's actually a unicorn team question for me, meaning because I really think it comes down to who. Who will I be around? Who am I learning from? Who am I helping guide me in the next season? You know, because whenever you're going for the next level, you're going to meet a new devil. Am I right? So it's like this next
100%.
level,
Always
next devil
true.
moment. And
That's
so because of that, even the unicorn team model for me is about my personal development. my ability to go, who's my health unicorn team? For me, I'm in perimenopause, TMI, sorry, friends, but this is the truth. This is the season I'm in. And it's a very hot season, definitely different energy, different way that my body works. It's crazy. And I was like, wow, here I have all these new professional endeavors, like a book and all the things. But if I'm not managing my health unicorn team, so it was like, I need a different nutrition team. I need a different, and then at home, even reorganizing our life with my husband and my kids, like, hey guys, this is kind of the next season mom is in. Let's talk about the next season you're in. And these are kind of the who we need to be in this next season for each other, because you're not just the leader at work, you're the leader at home. I tell people all the time, like most business problems are fixable. There's always some expert, some knowledge out there, and you need those people to get you through. But if you don't actually unicorn team your life too, if you don't figure out your personal needs. And so that's how I show up really, to answer your question, is it usually has to do with, am I tending to the relationships in my life? Am I taking care of my body? Am I emotionally and mentally feeling healthy? And then, of course, being around other people who challenge me in both, not just saying, hey, Jen, good job, you're amazing, but actually challenge me and say, hey, have you thought about this? Hey, you keep talking about you want to make that big ask, and I haven't seen you do it yet. Are you going to do it? Having those friends, those colleagues around you just matters so much, especially as you ascend and also as you descend, because you will do both. I feel like life is a series of everything between a Category 5 hurricane and a lazy river, and you're going to hit. But unfortunately, we live in a world where it's like you only see those two things. You're only like, oh, let's have all this space and time and ease and grace. And then there's the side of oh my gosh, be a hustler, or, or literally you're having a moment in your life where, trauma or something's happening, which is going to happen to all of us. So for me, it's all about managing that in between. That's how I can be a better leader in my business and at home, especially at home. So yeah.
I love the holistic nature of that answer. So many people want to compartmentalize their lives.
Yeah.
And pretend like what happens at home doesn't affect what happens at work.
Oh my gosh.
Or vice versa.
I wish.
Right?
I just want to secretly say that's what I wish it was like that. My God, it would be easier.
It's just not true.
It's just not true.
We're one unified person. That's what integrity is, where all the parts of your life are integrated. Right?
Yes.
They're all touching each other.
Yes.
And I love the holistic nature of that answer. I think that is so indicative of health. Just I want our listeners to make sure that they take note of that. And if you have fallen into the trap of thinking that you can compartmentalize and build walls between the parts of your life, that is not a path that is going to take you anywhere you want to go, because that's not healthy and it's not realistic.
It really isn't. And this isn't a gender thing. I a lot of times people say, oh, masculine energy, feminine energy. I actually don't believe in either of those things. I believe in integration over separation. And that is because honestly, men and women, I'll just say, even we've been socialized to think those are separate too. And I want to offer all of you listening that even if we wish it were true, it's not. We need to bring more of our integrated selves to our team, to ourselves, and to the people that we love and care for. And once we start becoming that person, people will start to become themselves more too and show up as their integrated self. And I feel like that's the bigger even takeaway from all of this.
So good. Jen, when I talk to other authors, I always ask this question. I know you are a constant learner. You're always learning and listening and growing. Is there a book that has made a big difference in your journey so far?
Oh, yeah.
That you would recommend to the leaders who are listening?
Yeah, I definitely have. Well, I have a few. My number one book since my 20s that I've been referring is The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell.
So good.
And he just came out with his new one, right? His 2.0 called Revenge of the Tipping Point. And I would argue I still like his first one better, even though times have definitely changed because of technology. it's the concepts of the book that I really, really still love so much. So I would say that that's always my number one recommendation. And then Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday.
I haven't read that one.
Oh, it is so good. If you want to become a person who doesn't just launch things, but actually builds things that people want forevermore, it is a great book.
I'll be checking that out.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Jen, I could talk to you for another hour. This is so good. I've so enjoyed our conversations and your book. I know our listeners are going to want to stay connected to you and continue to learn more about what you're doing and read your book. What is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So just go to Amazon or any of your favorite retailers, digital or obviously in person. If you don't see the book at your local bookstore, just tell them, hey, I'd like to order this book. And that actually will help out a bookseller in a local neighborhood. They can easily buy it for you and send it to you. But obviously, Amazon is usually the easiest way to get the book, and I welcome that. It's also going to be available, obviously, in an audio version and in a Kindle version as well. And then to hang out with me, I'm on LinkedIn at Jennifer Kem, and I'm also on Instagram. I'm on all the platforms, but LinkedIn and Instagram are the places I like to communicate and talk and have dialogue with you. And then I have a YouTube channel where I teach a lot of different concepts, just like I do in the book.
And we will have links to all of those in the show notes.
Great.
We've timed this episode release, so it's coming out the day that this book releases. And I'm so excited that as you're listening to this, you can go get this book, and I'm going to challenge every one of you to do that. It's worth it. It's going to be one that you're going to keep and you're going to read and you're going to share. So many great concepts here. Jen, thank you again for writing it and for your generosity of time and insight today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It has been such a great conversation.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.